White Coat Ceremony of St. George's University School of Medicine's class of 2029. Woo! I would like to recognize the presence of Dr. Glenn Jacobs, Provost, Dr. Richard G. Oles, President Emeritus and keynote speaker for today, Dr. Mark Clunes, Senior Associate Dean of Basic Sciences, Dr. Robert Grant, Senior Associate Dean of Clinical Studies, Dr. Lucy Clunes, Dean of Students, Dr. Neil Olson, Dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Antonia McDonald, representing Dr. Callan McPherson, Dean of Graduate Studies, Dr. Stephen Nimrod, representing Dr. Lucy Eugene, the Dean of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Brendan LeGrenade, Vice Provost for Institutional Advancement, Dr. Anthony Andel, Assistant Provost for Administrative Affairs, the Associate and Assistant Deans, Chairs, and Heads of Departments within the St. George's University School of Medicine, other faculty, members, staff, specially invited guests, parents, and most especially our students. Today, we celebrate the beginning of an incredible journey for our students as they don the white coat for the first time, stepping into a profession that demands both commitment and compassion. As a proud alumna of this esteemed institution, I can tell you firsthand that this ceremony is not just about putting on a coat, it's about embracing the values of integrity, service, and lifelong learning. It is a reminder that medicine is more than just a science. It is a human endeavor built on trust, empathy, and dedication to others. You, our students, you've worked tirelessly to reach this milestone, and today you take your first symbolic step into a profession that will challenge and inspire you every single day. Wear this white coat with pride, knowing that it represents not just knowledge, but also humility and the privilege of caring for others. I would like to share with you a brief history of the White Coat Ceremony. In 1993, the Arnold P. Gold Foundation created the White Coat Ceremony at Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons to promote humanism in medicine. With guidance from the Gold Foundation, the St. George's University School of Medicine initiated its own White Coat Ceremony in 1996, long before many other US medical schools. In 2003, the Gold Foundation founded the Gold Humanism Honor Society, an international society dedicated to the promotion of humanism, professionalism, and ethics, both in medical practice and in medical education. Dr. Arnold Gold sadly passed away at the age of 92. He was an international advocate for humanism in healthcare, and we were honored to have hosted Dr. Gold and his wife Sandra as keynote speakers for our spring 2005 White Coat Ceremony. The St. George's University's chapter of the Gold Humanism Honor Society is based in the Department of Clinical Skills and is supported by the Dean of Medicine's office. Our chapter established a humanitarian student organization in 2009. And through this organization, basic sciences students promote humanism across the St. George's University and Grenadian communities. Chapter members are nominated by their peers, and they are inducted during their clinical training when they participate in an ongoing chapter project. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the podium Dr. Glenn Jacobs, Provost of St. George's University.
Good afternoon. On behalf of St. George's University, I would like to welcome all of you to St. George's and the island of Grenada, or better known as the Isle of Spice. I also want to welcome all of you watching us online. A special word of welcome to all the parents, family, and friends present here today. This is indeed a memorable day for all of you, and I would like to acknowledge you for what you have done for your student. I'm sure you are very proud of them, and they of you. So I hope you're enjoying your stay here on the island of Spice. Now, you are fortunate to be visiting us here during a very special time in Grenada. This year, Grenada is celebrating its 51st anniversary of independence on February the 7th. That's next Friday. So you guys have probably all seen the different colors on the island, yeah, on the campus, and wherever you drive around. And the three colors that you've noticed are red, green, and gold. So we here at SGU are very happy to celebrate this event with a community of Grenada. Now, for you as students, it's probably good to know what these colors mean, because you'll see them all around. And there's one reference to one color that I'm going to speak to a bit. Green represents the island's vegetation and agriculture. Red stands for courage and vitality. And gold, or yellow, reflects the warmth and wisdom of the nation. I will get back to this word, wisdom. Students, I am very happy to welcome you in person. I will not be addressing you that often as a group. The next time I probably speak to you as a group will be during your graduation. Look at that. Yep, you'll be amazed how quickly that will be. Now, Kazara already spoke about it, and other presenters here today will speak about the meaning of the white coat to you. So, coming to St. George's University and being here today, you have come here with great intellect. You have and will gain lots of knowledge while being here at St. George's University. But I trust that during your time here, you will also develop, and I'm getting back to that old word, wisdom. So John Esow, the best-selling author, explains it so well in his book, The 5 Secrets You Must Discover Before You Die. Wisdom is different and fundamentally more important than knowledge. Knowledge is the accumulation of facts, whereas wisdom is the ability to discern what matters and what does not matter. Unless we can discover what really matters, we cannot find the true meaning of life. Now, okay, that sounds very serious, and I am serious about that. And if you remember nothing, I want you to remember this wisdom that you are going to continue to develop. So to make that a little bit more humorous, and maybe you will then remember this, that will also relate to the word wisdom. Now, wisdom is emphasized all around us. And as I just mentioned to you, we also find it on social media, all over the place. And on social media, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram, if you put in there something about wisdom, you will also get a response. And there's a sports star from Ireland. I don't actually know what's his name. I tried to look at what's his name, but he had an Ireland sweater on, so I guess he's from Ireland. I think he plays rugby. And he made this comment in some kind of an interview, which relates to knowledge and wisdom. And he said, knowledge, intelligence, is knowing that a tomato or tomato is a fruit. But wisdom is knowing not to put the tomato in a fruit salad. So hopefully you will remember that part today. So as you put on your white coat today, it is a symbol of all the hard work that you have put in to reach this point. Your white coat signifies a commitment, not only to acquiring knowledge, but to practicing discipline and applying wisdom in everything you do. Enjoy the island with your loved ones present here today. Take them out to a restaurant. Take them somewhere nice to eat. Let them experience some callaloo soup. I hope you have. If you haven't, try it. It's very nice. Tell them they must make it a little creamy and put some hot sauce in it, and you will definitely enjoy it. Cherish this special day. You deserve it. And once again, congratulations. I would now like to welcome Dr. Mark Clunas, Senior Associate Dean of Basic Sciences.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Clunas, Senior Associate Dean of Basic Sciences, and I've had the privilege to meet most of the aspiring physicians here and introduce them in our orientation to the program. Welcome to my colleagues, the faculty, staff, and fellow administrators from the School of Medicine, to my colleagues from the School of Veterinary Medicine this morning, the School of Arts and Sciences, and our special guests, of course, Dr. Richard Olds, our President Emeritus, and it's a great pleasure to host you again at our white coat ceremony. A special welcome to the parents and families of our students, as well as, of course, you today who've pledged or come to make that pledge as aspiring physicians. Your journey's already started. It started the moment we inducted you in orientation into our course. But today you're going to take a pledge, which is a commitment, a public commitment in front of your faculty, your peers, and your families. And that commitment is what you control 100%. You control your level of commitment to what you're doing today. It's a choice. It's a commitment to yourself, to the community of professionals you join, and also to the patients that you'll serve. It's a pledge you'll do your best. Apply yourself with the best intention, with positivity to your patients and to your colleagues, and strive to the highest levels of integrity. Now, the wonderful news is that unlike the board exams, which you cannot control, you can control your level of commitment to that integrity and to the best intentions. I say it all the time, but between every action and reaction, there's time to pause, to stop, and to think what your reaction is going to be. There's time to be intentional about how you present yourself and how you are professional in your role. Now, I didn't coordinate with the provost this morning, but I have here that your journey to clinical wisdom includes more than tomatoes and tomatoes, but it will lead through clinical knowledge, the development of clinical reasoning, the integration of how you gather that information from your patients, and it's going to be long and progressive. It's a commitment to developing that mastery through time. But today's a little different. Today starts full throttle. We don't expect you to develop the values of commitment to integrity over the course of your journey. We expect you to express them today, tomorrow, and through the rest of time in your studies here. That's a commitment to integrity, to positivity, to doing your best, to conscientiousness, to applying yourself, to being the best self that you can possibly be for you, for your patients, and for your peers. I don't give out advice, but if I would say one thing about today is take a moment to be present. Find time to reflect. Take time to pause, and for those of you who have loved ones with you, form those memories, because the memories that you make today will last beyond tomorrow and probably for the rest of your lives. So my best wishes for you on this journey, and I just want to invite my compadre from the clinical years, Dr. Grant, up to the stage to say a few words of wisdom before you join him in your clinical years.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm delighted to add my welcome and greetings and the acknowledgement of my distinguished peers joining us all here as members of the faculty to welcome you into the unbelievable journey that's starting here at medical school for you. I'm going to give you an example of how modern intelligence gathering works. I had no idea that a tomato was a fruit. So I looked up very quickly why a tomato is a fruit. And a fruit is defined as the fleshy or dry ripened ovary of a flowering plant enclosing the seed or seeds. That's why tomatoes are fruits, but common berries are not. So if you ever find yourself in an interview or at a loss for words, please thank our beloved and my good friend, our provost, for that little bit of wisdom so that you can have a conversation that will make sure that you won't be standing there with nothing to say at an inopportune part of your life. So thank you to our provost for educating us all. I have the distinct pleasure of representing all of the clinicians who you will have the opportunity to interact with when you get into the clinical aspects of our four-year curriculum. I also have the honor of having been on the faculty at Columbia University and having met Dr. Arnold Gold. Dr. Arnold Gold was a pediatrician. He was diminutive in size, but certainly, as you've heard, not in the things that he's accomplished. The thing I learned from Dr. Gold is, as a pediatrician, he would do this when encountered with a child. He would get down and see them eye to eye, which I realized was a very important philosophic statement to make when it comes to where we need to meet our patients as clinicians. It's interesting, for those of you who read the Wall Street Journal, recently there's been an article and a series of replies asking, is medicine a calling or is it a job? And there are generational aspects to it. The nature of medicine's changed very much since the time that I was sitting in a chair as a first-year medical student. But my thesis is medicine is neither a job or a calling. It should be something that you feel a passion for. And as my dad told me, if you're doing something that you're in love with, you'll never work a day in your life. Remember that the journey ahead of you is a challenging one. It's challenging on purpose because we pick the best and the brightest to help care for our fellow men. If it was easy, they'd let anybody become a doctor. And while we like to have the kind of doctors who are represented here today as the future of medicine, the reality is it is a special responsibility that you're given when you are given the privilege of caring for your fellow man. The white coat is a metaphor for taking on the responsibilities for being able to care for someone who comes to you for help. Remember, you're not the person with the problem. The patient is. Don't judge them for having a problem. This isn't a situation where you're there to make a new friend or to identify yourself as a life partner. No, you are there in a role to help your fellow man. Don't let the white coat, however, define you. It is not something that exists because it's a symbol of authority. If you exercise the privileges well, you will be given much respect in your community. But the wonderful thing about being a doctor is there's lots and lots of kind of doctors. Always be true to yourself. That's all that anyone can ever ask. Your parents, family, and friends here today have all instilled upon you the difference between what's right and what's wrong. You know what the right thing to do is. If you put your patient's interests first, you will never have a problem understanding what the right thing to do is. Now, it's going to be difficult because there'll be times when what you want to do and what you need to do is going to be very different than the obligation that you have to a patient. You're going to miss family parties. You're going to be on call on holidays and weekends. 9 to 5 is only 8 hours of a 24-hour day. So by definition, you all will be working 2/3 of the time after hours. You will have experiences and be able to make a difference in the lives of your fellow man like no one else will be able to. Please take care of yourselves. All of us here at St. George's are here to help you in this exciting journey that you embark upon. Ask for help if you need it. a clinician knows to get a consult from a peer who may have more sophistication or knowledge when faced with a challenging problem. We call it the practice of medicine because no one ever gets it completely. Medicine is a team sport. Respect yourselves and your peers. That's why the phrasing in the affirmation you're going to make is so critically important. The previous vice chancellor used to have a wonderful saying, which I'm sure you all flew here to Grenada. When a crisis happens and the aircraft cabin decompresses, they talk about the oxygen dropping and they remind you, make sure you put your own mask on before you go to help somebody else. And I think that's a great analogy for us as physicians in this time when the challenges of practicing medicine in a cost-effective way, keeping the patient at the front of it, is still something that we're continuing to grapple with as a society. Make sure you put your face mask on before you go and help others. Finally, I bring greetings from our dean, Marios Lucas. Dr. Lucas is busy traveling for St. George's. One of the things that he always says, and I am speaking through him and for him by giving you these comments, is to say to the students, with all of the electronics that we have available, please send a text or a picture to your parents and friends regularly. Let them know how you're doing. In the same way that medicine is practiced as a team, each and every one of you has a team of family and friends supporting you who will support you through the challenging times ahead. Don't forget them, don't leave them behind. They're as interested and as committed to your success as you are. When I see the students sitting in front of me today, I know that the future of medicine is in wonderful hands. We wish you all great success. Ask us to help you. We're here to help you. Everything we do is student-centric. Not that you get to choose what you're going to do, but that every policy that the school makes is done to ensure that the individual journey of the kind of doctor you want to be is something that we can help. With that, I wish you well. I offer my congratulations, and I say good luck and God bless.
I now have the great pleasure of introducing Dr. G. Richard Olds, an esteemed and respected colleague and our keynote speaker today. Dr. G. Richard Olds is a physician, innovator, educator, researcher, and administrator spanning over 4 decades. He graduated from Case Western University in Cleveland, Ohio, with distinction and trained in internal medicine at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. He then trained as a fellow in both infectious disease and tropical medicine at the University Hospitals of Cleveland, where he also was selected to be their chief resident. After several years at Case Western University, he was recruited to Brown University, where he rose to be a tenured professor of medicine, pediatrics, molecular cell and developmental biology. He was the founding director of Brown's International Health Institute and taught some of the university's most popular undergraduate courses. Dr. Olds was then recruited back to his alma mater to be the chairman of medicine at the Metro Health campus of Case Western Reserve University, where he served for almost a decade. He was then recruited to the Medical College of Wisconsin as a tenured professor and chairman of the Department of Medicine, where he served for 11 years. In 2009, he became the founding dean of the University of California, Riverside School of Medicine, where he opened the first new four-year medical school in the UC system in almost 4 decades. In 2015, he became the first president of St. George's University in Grenada, and in 2022, he retired as our emeritus president. In recent years, he has worked as a consultant helping U.S. hospitals improve their resident and medical student education programs. He currently chairs the St. George's University Oversight Committee, which is charged by the school's accreditors to monitor the school's performance. Dr. Olds has always been an educational innovator, having created a variety of specialized residency training programs, medical school tracks, and introduced several new curricula. He has started over a dozen new GMC residency training programs in several disciplines and have been a strong voice for incorporating social mission into medical education. Dr. Olds received numerous teaching honors throughout his career and even today continues to teach and advise residents and students. He is an internationally recognized authority in tropical medicine. He's the author of over 100 peer-reviewed papers and book chapters. He represents North America on several WHO expert panels, sits on the board of the Global Viral Network, and has been designated as a master by the American College of Medicine. Please join me again in welcoming Dr. Richard Olds.
Well, thank you for that very nice introduction. And I particularly want to thank the faculty and staff of St. George's University. It's always nice to be invited back. It kind of gives you a warm feeling that you weren't forgotten. And for those of you in the back and the sides, my wife and I were in your shoes not long ago. I know how proud you are to have a child that's going to be training in medicine. But of course, the key is congratulations to the class of 2029. Now, as I was preparing for my talk today, I took some inspiration from my own father. Strangely enough, my own father was a university president, but before he had those jobs, he was a Methodist minister, and he gave fantastic sermons. And the key to his sermons is he used to tell personal stories that had an allegory at the end that would make the point of what he was including in the sermon. And so when I thought about what I would say to you today, I've decided to tell you 3 personal stories to put a different spin on the meaning of the white coat. You've already heard intellectually what that white coat means, what it symbolizes, etc. But I hope stories have the ability to put a more emotional and personal aspect into that meaning. So the first story to tell you about went back at the very beginning of my medical career. As you heard, I was an intern at the Massachusetts General Hospital. And just a few weeks into my internship, I was called to the emergency room, and I walked into the ED cubicle, and there was an elderly African-American woman sitting bolt upright in bed, extremely short of breath. Now, it wasn't difficult to figure out what was wrong with Miss Robinson. Miss Robinson was in severe congestive heart failure, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why, because all you had to do was walk into the room, put your hand on her chest, and you could hear the harsh rumble of aortic stenosis. Now, for those of you in the audience that are not familiar with medicine, the aorta is the big blood vessel that exits the heart, and right at that junction is the aortic valve, and when the heart squeezes, it pushes all the blood out, and that valve keeps it from leaking back into the left ventricle. Now, in some cases, like Miss Robinson, that opening gets smaller and smaller, and that makes the left ventricle work harder and harder, and eventually the left ventricle fails, and they go into severe congestive heart failure, and that was Miss Robinson's problem. Well, we got her a little better with some oxygen and some medical treatment and sent her upstairs to the intensive care unit, and I returned a little while later to see this large stack of charts. Now, all of you are entering the world where everything's electronic, but in the old days, like when I trained, everything was written down, and there was this massive stack of charts that related to Miss Robinson. And of course, I started looking through them, and I found numerous admissions and numerous expansive discussions of congestive heart failure, of calcific aortic stenosis of the elderly, of what the latest surgical approaches are, all by the luminaries that went before me at the Mass General. But every one of those admissions ended up with the clear recommendation that she had to have that heart valve changed. And every one of those admissions, she steadfastly refused to have surgery, was discharged home on medical therapy. And medical therapy just isn't very effective in a case of aortic stenosis. Well, the other important aspect of that chart is I turned to the very last volume and opened them up and discovered that the house officer that had cared for Miss Robinson for the last 3 years had just left for a fellowship, and so Miss Robinson was my patient. And so I continued to care for Miss Robinson for the next several months, and you can figure out what the story would be. She'd be out of the hospital for a few weeks, and then she'd come in severe congestive failure. We'd get her a little better. We'd recommend open heart surgery, and she refused, and so we went home on medical therapy. Well, one thing that happened over those several months is I got to know Miss Robinson rather well. So during one of those admissions when she was feeling better, I sat down with Miss Robinson, and I said, you know, Miss Robinson, I know you're a very smart woman. You were a school teacher for 40 years. And I know it isn't hard to figure out what the problem is. You just have to put your own hand on your heart, and you can feel it. And you know that open heart surgery is the only thing that's going to save your life. I really don't understand why you keep refusing to have surgery. Tell me what is behind all of this? Well, by now, Miss Robinson, I think, had gotten to know me pretty well, and she told me an interesting story. She had moved from the deep south as a young woman, became a school teacher for 40 years, and she had retired 15 years earlier. And over that period of time, all of her friends and family had either moved away or died, and she was all by herself. And she said, every time I think of coming in there to have open heart surgery, I think of this massive building, all these strangers, all these terrible things they're going to do to you, this huge operation, the long recovery, and I'm petrified. And as soon as I get that scared, I just say, no surgery, leave the hospital, because I can't deal with my own personal fear. Well, I thought about that, and the next day I walked into Miss Robinson's room and I said, you know, Miss Robinson, what if you had a friend that would come into the hospital with you, help you through the admission process, be there when they induced anesthesia, be there when you woke up from anesthesia, be your friend and confidant during your recovery? Do you think that you would have the courage to go through with this operation? She thought about it and she said, well, maybe. So the next day, Miss Robinson and I were admitted to the Mass General Hospital. We went through all of the admission processes. I was there when she induced her anesthesia. I was there when she woke up from anesthesia, and I visited her every day while she was in the recovery room. Now, the truth is that wasn't a particularly big deal for me, because this is long before an 80-hour work week. Those of us that were house staff literally lived in the hospital. So, it was just taking the time to see an extra patient on your rounds. But Miss Robinson ultimately survived that surgery, lived for another 10 years, and she ultimately died of another medical condition unrelated to her heart. But I never forget Miss Robinson. She knitted me an Afghan during the time of her recovery, and that Afghan's still on my bed in our family farm in Vermont. And what's the lesson of Miss Robinson? Miss Robinson didn't need a extensive differential workup, complicated laboratory tests, sophisticated reviews of the literature. All Mrs. Robinson needed was a friend. And if there isn't any other friends around, that friend had to be me. And that's the meaning of that white coat you put on today. Now, the second story requires a little introduction. I have been training doctors for almost 50 years, and I've often felt that it would be very useful for all of you to be patients someday. I don't really wish you ill, but it's very useful to actually be a patient yourself and realize how vulnerable patients feel. Try walking around the hospital naked in a Johnny open in the back. Try going in with some unknown disease, especially as a medical student, and your imagination evokes all sorts of terrible things you learned in medical school, and it's not a very comfortable experience. But even more terrifying than being a patient yourself is to be a parent of a child that gets admitted to the hospital, particularly if they get admitted with an unknown disease or some terrible accident or injury, because that is the most terrifying experience I think any human being can have. So this story took place about 25 years ago. I was at the time the chairman of medicine in Cleveland, and our big teaching hospital is right in downtown Cleveland, and my wife and family decided that we wanted to live in the country. So we moved into a house in Chagrin Falls that backs onto the Metro Parks, which is a green space that surrounds the city of Cleveland. And our house, actually the back of our house opened on to the woods, and if you kept going through that woods, you'd get to some steep declines and you'd eventually run into the Chagrin River. Well, this was a Saturday morning, and I was at home working at my desk, and suddenly there was some banging on the door, really severe banging. I went running downstairs, and I opened the door, and my middle son, Michael, was there completely out of breath, and he says, Dad, Trevor was, and us were all sledding, and he hit a tree, and he's not moving. I can tell you that was the worst moment of my life. So I pulled enough together to call 911, and I left my son Michael at the door to direct the EMTs, and I went sprinting back into the woods. And sure enough, that was my youngest son crumpled at the base of a tree about halfway down a steep incline with a broken sled, and he wasn't moving. Now, I knew enough not to move him, but we took off our parkas and tried to keep him warm. And what seemed like an eternity before the EMTs arrived with a bodyboard, and we put my son on there, and we took him out of the woods and into the ambulance, and we drove a short distance where there was a helipad. Now, at the time, the hospital that I worked at actually ran the emergency helicopter service called Life Flight. And because I was affiliated with that hospital, I got to ride in the helicopter with my son, and my poor wife and the other two boys had to drive. Took them about 45 minutes to get there. It took me 5 minutes. But when my family got there, they found me in the waiting area outside the trauma center. And we sat there, obviously in terrible fear for a while. And then out of the door came a young female medical student in her white coat. And she walked up to us and said, "The trauma surgeon asked me to come out and reassure you that your son doesn't have any head injuries or spinal injuries. He's broken a few bones, but we think he's going to be okay." Well, I can tell you that was the best time of my life. Now, subsequently, my son recovered completely. He knocked out a few of his teeth, broke a bunch of bones. He had a lacerated liver and had a third-degree concussion. But he grew up, he was fine. He was a professional actor for 10 years. And a few years ago, he decided that that probably wasn't a career for him. And he's now a third-year medical student at your school. But what is the message of this story? My wife and I will never forget that medical student coming out into the waiting room and reassuring a couple of really worried parents. And that's the meaning of that white coat you put on today. Now, my last story is the most recent. It's about 16 years ago. At the time, I was chairman of medicine at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And I was there for 11 years, and I always attended on the medical services 4 times a year. And our faculty, we had about 350 faculty, and they were equally divided between Froedtert, which is the big teaching hospital in Milwaukee, and the Zablocki VA Hospital, which is the big VA affiliate. And I attended 2 months in each places. Now, after 11 years, I actually got to know a lot of the patients at both hospitals that were recurrently admitted to the hospital because, you know, I'd eventually take care of them over time. And I always attended in July. Well, why July? It's because the interns are brand new in July, and all the medical students are on their very first rotation. So I always assigned the most senior faculty and the most senior residents to July and August to make sure that everything went well. And sure enough, I was at the VA this particular July on my team. And 2 or 3 days into that month, I was admitted Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson had a very sad medical history. Mr. Anderson's wife had died prematurely, And then Mr. Anderson had developed leukemia. And he had to undergo multiple rounds of toxic chemotherapy to treat that condition. And at the end of it, he had a massive stroke, paralyzed the left side of his body. And for him, the worst thing is he was forced to leave his dairy farm in northern Wisconsin and move in with his daughter in Milwaukee and live the life of a bedridden invalid, coming in and out of the hospital with a variety of different medical conditions. And this admission was no different. He was admitted with a urinary tract infection from his chronic indwelling Foley, and we took care of him. But at the time, I assigned a brand new medical student, Bill, to take care of Mr. Anderson. Now, that wasn't exactly by accident. I actually knew Bill came from the same dairy farm area of Wisconsin. I thought they might have something in common. In fact, that turned out to be the case. I'd often walk down the halls, and I would see Bill in there with Mr. Anderson, and they'd be talking about fly fishing or bow hunting deer, or Mr. Anderson was talking about his experiences during the Vietnam War. And we eventually got Mr. Anderson in better shape, sent him home, and he was readmitted about 2 more times that month, and each time, of course, I assigned Bill to take care of the case. Now, at the end of the month, I rotated off the service, and I actually had to go to a medical meeting, and I was gone for a week. And when I got back, there was a message on my desk from Mr. Anderson's daughter. And so I immediately called her up, and she told me that Mr. Anderson had passed away while I was gone. And I, of course, gave her my condolences and said I was sorry that I wasn't there to help the family at the end. But she then told me an interesting story. Mr. Anderson was a deeply religious man, and he often said he just didn't understand why God is punishing him so. His wife had died, he had to suffer through this terrible treatment, and the worst thing is that he became paralyzed and bedridden, and he had this awful experience of having to come in and out of the hospital on a recurrent basis, and he just hated living that way, and he couldn't understand why God was punishing him. And then a couple days before Mr. Anderson died, he said, you know, I finally figured out what the message was. God wanted me to live for a few months longer so I could help Bill become a better doctor. And that's the meaning of the white coat you put on today. Now, you've already heard that all of you will learn everything you need to know about the science of medicine. You'll learn about health and disease. You'll learn about, those stethoscopes. By the way, the pointy end goes in the air. And you will all graduate in 4 years and be wonderful doctors. But it's your patients that will teach you the art of medicine. Listen to your patients. Learn from your patients. Care about your patients. And then you'll become a truly outstanding physician. So in conclusion, I welcome all of you. Congratulations to all of you. But most important, welcome to the noble profession of medicine. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olds, for your inspiring stories that I think really beautifully illustrated the meaning of the white coat and the responsibility it holds for you as physicians and, of course, for your patients, to your patients. So now, St. George's University School of Medicine will present you with a white coat, symbolizing your entry to the profession and your commitment to uphold the duties and trust associated with medicine and medical training. I would now like to invite the faculty from the School of Medicine to take the stage. Our quotas today include Dr. Mayana Charles, Dr. Mohammed Abdul Rahim, Dr. Simone Pierre, Dr. Nadira Moomin, Dr. Rachel George, Dr. Elizabeth Sangster, Dr. Elias Abdullah, and Dr. Tiffany Clemenson. Dr. Sasha Lake, our Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs, will call each student by name and college. Those students who have with them today a physician, family member, or loved one will be quoted by those physicians. Please hold your applause until all the students are quoted and keep the aisles clear for the duration of the quoting.
I will now like to call on the students from Blackwell College to be quoted. Yusuf Georges. Mariana Fatoy. Durvanan Setu. Luis Escalante. Brian Edwards. Jeffrey Stith. Aziz Sowedan. Anura Kamal. Malachi Pilali. Lydia Gosa. Arpita Govil. Anika Huck. Asma Hashimi. Caitlin Campbell. Tyler Ellett. Selena Sylvester. Kearney Say. Nicole Leon. Amber Claire Strawn. Cassia Gilchrist. Shantae Bubb. Cleshante Marishow. Trinell Samuel. Kimberly Andrews. Lakeisha George. Desire Joseph. Uluwa Kore de Ulauwe Rule. Chinelo Madubiki. Atira Stephen. Janae Thomas. Shravia Valete. I will now like to call on the students from Curie College to be quoted. Renisha Muhar. Christine Zlateski. Natasha Trenaboa. Brenda Berneche. Sophia Mason. Audrey Beaton. Courtney Copeland. Naomi Belgrave. Lily Apia Adjaman. Shalonda Brissett. Osan Kiki. Musa Maloa Praise Ajala. Jolie Abusif. Melissa Fernandez. Almas Zafar. Janat Man. Nicole Canas. Zaria Maxwell. Madeline Ivy Bayshore. Diana Duarte. Beverly Davis. Hamza Ali. Shoaib Siddiqui. Mariso Aguilera. Ope Oluwa Olanian. Jorge Gonzalez. Mohammed Al Nahayan. Danielle Khan. Raj Singh. Carmen Hernandez. Trey Ray. Sharia Barma. Bodana Postkolowski. Irfan Jam. Daniel Nathan. Vikrumjit Samra. Serafina Honor. Alex Ramdas. Obafemi Michael Animashon. Edwina Akidwe. Buffy Joy Lloyd. Nilu Karimazad. Camilla Diaz. I will now like to call on the students from Fleming College to be quoted. Jake Olson. Bhavya Kamapali. Megha Tirumali. Rudra Patel. Mohammed Rahman. Claire Ricardo Etienne. Fabian Comey. Greta Suizo. Eunice Gonzalez Force. Cameron Mariano. Game Chu Jiwei. Shay Davidson. Marissa Moses. Bianca Gooden. Talicia Torres. Sharifa Kelly. Anissa Ahmed Dilibe. Kayla Dixon. Francesca St. Hilaire. Alireza Baharlu Shemsai. Mark Uchendu. Kushbu Singh. Sherry Jiang. Roya Kuja. Ava Hudre. Alexandria Rodriguez. Ibrahim Khan. Ibrahim Saeed. Turab Rizvi. Faisal Abu Al-Soud. Danielle Chikweto. Amin Abedi. Ziad Hazama. Stephen Doe. Jordan Maya Dawson. Janae Courtney Campbell. Joanna Shukri. Cassandra Messi. I would now like to call on the students from Galen College to be quoted. Adiza Mahama Toure. Laura Aquino. Michelle Akhtar. Sogan Sadat. Hadley Abram. Darlington Ajay. Darian Payne. Basilki Bapali. Melody Salman Hastic. Zara Juman. Keisha Estrada. Malika Shaw. Malika Kapadia. Bogdan Sheremet. Trevor Woodcock. Jing Chuan Sophia Lin. Lulia Alim. Ebenezer Zaude. Evan Tan. Brandon Quarterman. Bikram Brar. Adam Maharaj. Kyra Douglas. Kamisha Donald. Gyu Ho Shin. Janique Gordon. I would like to thank the faculty from the School of Medicine for their assistance in coating our students. I will now like to call on the students who will be coated by their designees. J.D. Allard, coated by her mentor, Dr. Kazara Rayburn. Jamal Courtney, coated by his mentor, Dr. Beverly Nelson. Siddharth Vadahata, coated by his aunt, Dr. Vijay Gariraham. Fatima Khan, coated by her father, Dr. Ayub Khan. Shay Lorraine Lewis, coated by her sister, Dr. Tony Ann Lewis. Jimmy Neville, coated by his sister, Dr. Laurel Neville. Isabella DeSantis, coated by her father, Dr. Christopher DeSantis. Al Hussein Case, coated by his father, Dr. Faris Hisham. Abed Ibrahim, coated by his father, Dr. Waled Ibrahim. Rakaya Sharif, coated by her father, Dr. Suhail Sharif, surgical oncologist. Thank you.
Congratulations again, class of 2029. I would now like to introduce Dr. Anna Cyrus Murden, Assistant Dean for Simulation and fellow alumna of St. George's University School of Medicine, to lead you in the professional commitment.
I'm short. Good afternoon. I would like to remind you this is your white coat ceremony, so let me feel the energy. Good afternoon, everyone. Well done. At this time, I would like to invite you, the class of 2029, to stand and recite aloud with me the professional commitment listed in your program. That's that little paper you have. That's your program. Yes. Found it? Some of you have programs, some don't, but can we get them some programs, please, for the ones who don't? While they're doing that, I'd also like to invite all the other physicians in the room to please stand and join us. The commitment was originally written by a student task force in 1995 and revised again in 2024. It has been recited at each of our School of Medicine white coat ceremonies, so this one will not be any different. Are we ready now? All right, let's go. Today is the beginning of my medical education and training as a physician. I acknowledge my responsibility to continue the pursuit of knowledge and understanding while recognizing the limits of my abilities and seeking assistance when necessary. I am entering training for a noble profession in which my interests must always be subservient to those who may seek to assistance. I must be ever conscious of the value of my fellow healthcare professionals and treat them with respect at all times. My classmates at St. George's Universities are now my colleagues, and I owe to them the same support and encouragement to achieve their goals as I hope to receive from them. I will work alongside my colleagues and professors with tolerance, compassion, honesty, and cultural humility. I will treat all members of the St. George's University Committee with visitors with equity, regardless of rank, and I will do with my future patients. I acknowledge my obligations to adhere to the University Honor Code and to conduct myself with integrity in an ethical manner at all times henceforth. Taking full responsibility for my choices and actions, I shall do all within my power to show myself an example of all that is honorable and good throughout my medical career. It is a privilege to have been given the opportunity to become a physician. May I be ever conscious of that privilege and never abuse it. So with that, congratulations to the class of 2029. Welcome to St. George's University. Please be seated.
So, sadly, we've come to the end of our white coat ceremony today, and on behalf of St. George's University, I would like to thank the Arnold Gold Foundation for the Humanism in Medicine pins that were placed on each student's white coat. Thank you to our students, their families, faculty, staff, administrators, and specially invited guests for your support and presence during this ceremony. Before we leave, we ask that you remain seated to keep the aisles clear before, as a faculty and students, they're going to be exiting, and please join us for light refreshments in the open area of Monica Hall. Again, thank you for joining us today, and a final congratulations to the class of 2029.